Hey y'all. Today I am so excited to finally be recapping one of the funniest rom-coms and one of the sweetest and one of the most highly recommended from you guys, 27 Dresses. 27 Dresses is starring Katherine Heigl, one of my favorite rom-com queens, James Marsden, one of my favorite rom-com kings, Judy Greer, Malin Ackerman, and Edward Burns. There's a lot to get into, so let's get started. Thank you for clicking on my video, and if you're returning, welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be recapping 27 Dresses starring Katherine Heigl and James Marsden. But before we get into that, if you haven't already, please don't forget to go ahead and like, subscribe, and share. So the movie opens up with a woman sharing how her entire life she has always loved helping brides on their wedding day. And it kind of gives the same energy as the wedding planner, except Jane is not a wedding planner. She's just an overworked friend who struggles to say no. These people are clearly taking advantage of Jane. But anyway, she says she loves it, so we're going to go with it. We then cut to Jane in the present day as she's trying on a wedding gown. And now in the beginning, it looks like it might be her gown because it is perfectly fitted to her. However, it turns out it belongs to a friend. And because their measurements are the same, she's standing in for her at the dress fitting. That is a bad idea. Never do that. I don't care how closely you are fitted to the person. That person is not you. And one of the main things that you want to get out of a dress fitting is to not only make sure the dress fits like a glove, but that you're comfortable in the way that you guys have chosen to fit the dress. Just saying. My wedding gown, I decided to let out the stomach a little bit because I knew we would be serving pasta and I knew I was going to want to eat. And it was the best decision I could have made. Just a little tip from me to you. Cut to Jane in 2 weddings in one night. Now, she doesn't know this, but she's being observed by a wedding columnist. He writes columns, the wedding columns and the announcements and the stories that go along with them for the local paper. He's observing Jane because he's covering one of the weddings. And he's so intrigued because he's like, I just saw you at the other wedding wearing a whole other outfit. And so he sees her going back and forth, and she is going back and forth to the extreme. And to get this done, I'm like, Jane, girl, if you're gonna be doing stuff like this, you need to get a car. But to get this done, she's in a taxi and she essentially offers the taxi driver a flat sum of money, a flat rate to stay with her the whole night and to just take her back and forth. And for every time he peeks in the back seat when she's changing clothes, she deducts $20, I believe it was. And by the end of the night, that man had lost 3/4 of his money. He was a looky-loo. Curiosity killed the bank account because, sir, that's the easiest task you could have had because you should have been compelled not to do that just simply for respect. But anyway, this is not my moment, but y'all know I will go on a feminist rant in a heart. She's in both weddings and she is living it up. However, she's living it up so much that she ends up getting knocked down. And when she comes to, there is a gentleman, the same one who's been watching her all night, and he comes to help her. His name is Kevin, and he's a writer, and he gets in the cab with her to help her get home safe. And as they're in the cab, clearly they immediately don't like each other, which of course means that they're really in love. You don't have immediate disdain for somebody in most cases without having some kind of connection. A lot of times the thing we're reacting to is the reflection of ourselves in another person. So the things that annoy us about some people are typically things we don't like about ourselves. Just another little tip from me to you. Somebody triggers you, that means dig deep. Not always, but in most cases. So anyway, they banter and he shares his disdain for weddings. Now, she does not know that he is a wedding columnist, but she does know that he's a writer. And so as he's talking about his disdain for not marriage, but weddings in particular, she's just kind of like, oh, great, another cynic, whatever. Now, she is a person who has bought into the whole fairy tale of weddings. And I'm not going to lie. I'm not a person who condemns weddings. I know it's really popular for people to say, it's not about the wedding, it's about the marriage. But I feel like that's comparing oranges to apples. That's like saying it's not about the birthday party, it's about the aging process. It's like, yeah, but the birthday party is to celebrate the shit. And so, yeah, I celebrate it by having a birthday party. And while that's not the most important thing, it is still very important because I want to enjoy the process and I want you guys to enjoy it too. So when people minimize weddings, I'm like, well, The ceremony is important. The ceremony is symbolic. It means a lot to people. And it's the day that you decide to unite with another person. That's like saying, no, your education is important, but not your graduation day. They're both important, not equally, but they are both important. And weddings are no different. Commemorating that special time in your life is important. And I understand why people buy into it. What I don't understand is why the wedding industry is as egregious as it is, and it exploits and takes advantage of people, especially at such an amazing, joyous time. I don't like anything exploitative, but we live in a capitalistic society, so what do you want to do? She gets home, and as she's getting out of the cab, she accidentally leaves her agenda book, and this man goes through the book. What is it about rom-coms that make these people inappropriately nosy? Like, it's one thing to be nosy. It's one thing to look at something if the page is already open and you just happen to know how to read upside down. It's one thing to look in your rear view and see what people are doing and talking. If they got quiet too long, they might be back there arguing and kissing. You don't know. It's okay to be moderately nosy, okay? Because I sits in my window and I watch. I'm a nosy person and I'm not going to be shamed for it. But it's another thing to lack boundaries. You do not open people's things. You do not go through people's things. That's just so crazy. And it seems to be a common theme in rom-coms. In The Wedding Planner, Matthew McConaughey or Ben went through Mary's purse. And then again, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. He goes through Andy's purse to find the Knicks tickets. And now here we are with James Marsden, my love, falling for the rom-com nonsense and going through her agenda book. Not only going through it, but ripping out whole pages. Like, he actually tampered with her book. He should have got punched in the throat. You do not touch people's things. And you have no idea what she could have been missing because of that. You have no idea. It's a rom-com, so we're going to go with it. But do not touch people's things, and you definitely don't change people's things. What's wrong with you? Anyway. So the next day at work, we learn that Kevin wants out of the style section of the paper. He does not want to keep writing about weddings. He thinks it's pretentious and annoying and ridiculous, but he just happens to be really good at it. And is that not corporate in a nutshell? The better you work, the more work we're going to give you, and we're probably not going to pay you adequately for it. And the better you are at something, the more you have to do it, even when you hate it. And as it would always go, you happen to be good at the thing that you genuinely dislike doing. That's just how it is. A lot of times when we release the constraints with something, we typically perform our best. So the thing that we hate, we typically are good at because we don't care that much about it. So we're not as anxious about it and we have fewer mistakes. That's just how it goes sometimes. We see Kevin protesting to his boss, and he's telling her like he doesn't want to do this anymore. He also met this woman at one of the weddings, and he would like to write the story surrounding her to blow the lid off of the manipulative wedding industry. Now, here's something I loved. This role, his boss is actually Jan from The Office. Melora Hardin. She's one of my favorite actresses. I love her so much. She was so great in the bold type. I love her so much. And she had a Dunder Mifflin cup on the bold type. And it's one of my favorite little callbacks. If you know, you know. So I love Melora Hardin in everything she's in. But she was great in this. She is good as a boss. That woman is made to be an authority figure. What do you want her to do? And no, you're not going to use this paper and the style section, one of our more lucrative sections of the paper, to blow the lid off the thing that's making us the most money. No, kind of sells her the story in an interesting way. So she gives him a shot at it. She tells him that he can do it, but with supervision. So he moves forward. We then see Jane at work, and it becomes abundantly clear from the second her foot touches the ground that she is in love with her boss. But we also see a lot of examples of Jane being a people pleaser to a very sad degree. I am a recovering people pleaser. I do not shame people pleasers. You are most likely conditioned to be that way by a number of different archetypes. But once you know better, it is your job to do better. It is your job to challenge those things about you so that you can learn to advocate for yourself and respect yourself and your boundaries and have some self-respect. Being a perpetual bridesmaid 27 times, this woman and people pleasing go hand in hand. She's the perfect bridesmaid for a reason. But we see her struggle with asserting authority even with her own employees. And not only are her own employees not responding to her with respect, but they're outright disgusting. I don't find anything funny about the asshole receptionist. If you don't like being a receptionist, don't be one. Go do something else. I don't find anything entertaining about people who buck the system from within for no reason. Just go do something else. There are some people who really love being receptionists. I was one. When I was a receptionist for Meridian Business Centers, I freaking loved it. I loved everything about it. It was so much fun. I didn't have a problem with it. And then when I moved on and I loved that job. I just feel like don't do a job you hate. And if you do hate it, at least learn to act like you don't, because that's no one else's fault that you're doing the job you hate. And also, when you're negative, you're only perpetuating more negativity. You might not hate the job if you didn't go in thinking, I hate the job. Just saying. Our perception creates our reality. Jane is a passive people pleaser with brides, with her receptionist, but most importantly with her boss. He takes advantage of her. She essentially thinks for him and he takes full advantage of it. She's also in love with him. And my advice to anyone who might be in love with someone at work, quit and pursue them once you've quit, or put it out of your mind as long as you work together. I am a person who does not believe you will ever find your love at the workplace, because the workplace is not meant for that. I'm not even a person who would entertain the idea. I used to hate when people would hit on me at work, even customers, clients, other people, some of my tenants. I genuinely disliked that shit because I felt like I was a sitting duck. I felt like I was stuck in a fishbowl where they knew where to find me if they wanted to get on my damn nerves, and they always took full advantage of it. So I'm not a big fan of people trying to find love at the workplace. I came here to get my check, not to get you. Know the difference. And so that would never work. Also, I wonder how that dynamic would translate at home. Like, how would you get out of that dynamic after a while? Like, let's say you do marry your boss and you stop working for him or her and you go home and you start dating and stuff. Like, do you get out of that? Like, are you comfortable being like, oh, here's your coffee, honey. Oh, here's the paper, honey. Like, do you ever snap out of that? I can't imagine having the same energy for my husband that I have for my bosses. Like, I put them in completely different categories because I never plan to get to know you personally. Like, I will work with and for you, but you do not get the personal me. And I can't imagine ever crossing those boundaries, but that's just me. Y'all let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'm sure it works, and I'm sure it has worked. So if you have an experience of having it work, let me know in the comments. Jane receives flowers on her desk, and later at their office party, she's under the impression that her boss left them. So she decides to make her way over to him to thank him for the flowers when she's interrupted by her baby sister, Tess, who just came into town. When Tess interrupts Jane and her boss, she introduces them and they immediately have a spark. He showed interest in Tess, and for me, if I was even remotely in love with my boss, which would never happen, that would have been the biggest turnoff. If you're in love with anybody that I know, I will never like or love you in that way. I don't care what happens. Ill. Gross. Jane sees Malcolm Doyle, who showed up to the party to return her agenda book because he knew where she would be. And then he informed her that the flowers were from him. She's very disappointed. And I just have to ask Jane, girl, are you well? There are a number of things in this movie that make me think Jane is a little cuckoo, but receiving flowers from James Marsden will never be a problem for me. That will never be met with disappointment. If James Marsden sent me flowers and then found my agenda book and went through it and then found me at a party later to tell me he sent me the flowers, I would do a backflip and a split and maybe even come up into a twerk. I would be my husband gonna make me get rid of this channel because I'll be over here openly fawning for James Marsden. But no, I mean, come on. Anyway, it's James damn Marsden. Get over it. Anyway, so I would not have been disappointed, especially not for her boss. I'm like, girl. So I actually like Edward Burns, who plays her boss, George, because he was in Life or Something Like It with Angelina Jolie, and he was a love interest there, and it worked. It worked really well. But he's great for that, but when he's up against James Marsden, I'm gonna need everybody to get the hell out of the way and make room for James Marsden. Get out of the way. But anyway, she's disappointed, and Malcolm then invites her to get a drink, yet she declines. And this is while Tess continues canoodling with George, and he's canoodling right back. They enter a relationship immediately, and Kevin continues to pursue Jane. Now, Kevin is the guy that she met, but he goes by the name Malcolm Doyle in his paper. So I have been in my notes, I happen to refer to him as Malcolm and Kevin interchangeably, but it's the same guy, James Marsden. So later they all go out to Pedro's baseball game. George mentors this little kid named Pedro, and he's just like friends with him and he supports him. It's kind of like big brother, little brother thing. And so they go out, and as George is introducing Pedro to Tess, she insults him by behaving as if he can't speak English because he's Hispanic. Mind you, he introduced himself in English. And this woman not only acts like he can't understand her, but she speaks as if he can't hear her either. And so she's like, "Hola, Pedro." Racist. Racist. Mama, you racist. This turned me off of the Tess character. So like prior to this, like Tess has just been shown to be kind of spoiled and just kind of self-centered, and she's never really had to solve her own problems. She's just kind of flighty. She's out here chilling, and she's just kind of absent-minded. Racism and being absent-minded are not the same thing. They made me dislike Tess with this. Like, had they done everything else outside of the shit she did to Pedro, I would have been like, that's just funny. Sisters are different, and sometimes we rub each other the wrong way. That's funny. Ha ha. But when she was racist to Pedro, I want to slap the shit out of her. The only thing saving Tess was that she was played by Malin Ackerman. And I love her. I've loved her since Proposal. I just think she's so interesting. I love her as an actress. I love her in everything. Right now, I'm watching her in The Hunting Wives. So I like Malin Ackerman. But Tess, she should have got a boot to the face. Tess starts conforming every one of her answers into George's perfect version of a lady. So like she's essentially gotten all this information from her sister, who is George's assistant, and she's gotten all this info from Jane, and so she's catering all her answers to match who George is. She essentially creates a whole new person, and Jane knows that all of this shit is a lie. She also works with George, and she also loves George a lot, like they're friends, and so she is kind of stuck in a pickle, like, girl, I know you're lying, you're making me feel really uncomfortable. Jane recognizes all the lies. She does take opportunities to call her out, and I'm actually not a fan of that. Like, if you have a problem with something that someone is doing, just talk to them, but don't try to call them out in front of everybody. You really don't know where that kind of behavior could be coming from, and you could be making a lot more harm than good. So then we get a montage of George and Tess falling in love, and Jane is always present and watching in horror. But when those two fools were having sex on her couch, I don't care if she was in love with her boss or not. First of all, I never want to see my boss at my house. Full stop. I also never want to see my boss having sex. Full stop. I never want to see my sister having sex. Ever. Ever. To see my sister and my boss having sex on my couch, I would have ripped my head off and punted it through a goalpost. Are you kidding me? How disrespectful. You do not have sex at people's homes. Even if you have a room, go somewhere else to do your tings. Do your poking outside of the house, but don't do your poking on my couch. You get poked in the face with my boot. I would not be okay with that. See, this is why I'm already banned from Lucchese, because I'm always threatened to kick somebody with a boot. Anyway, I'm just not a fan of that, and it just makes me so uncomfortable. So now we come to the inevitable part where George proposes to Tess. This proposal sucked. It seemed like it was gonna be cute, but Jane ruined it, because when someone says, "Oh, I'm fine," and then you see the sign, get your ass and go. Don't stand there like, whoa, what's happening? That's passive aggressive. You did that shit on purpose. You cannot convince me otherwise. Now, Tess doesn't deserve much because of how she treated Pedro, but you ain't too far from her. You're both trash. What is with these rom-coms depicting sisters as these competitive enemies? I don't like that. I don't like that at all. You should not be jealous of your sibling. You shouldn't be jealous of anybody, but you especially shouldn't be jealous of your sibling. That's weird. That's weird energy. No one can beat me cheering for my siblings. I have 2 sisters and a brother and a whole bunch of step siblings, and you cannot beat me cheering for them. I am going to be their loudest supporter, and I'm going to love them down no matter what. I can't imagine being jealous of my siblings. If anything, no matter what they have, I'm going to be the one trying to top them off and give them more, make sure they have access to more. I just don't understand being jealous of anybody, but especially your siblings. So Jane and I, we don't see eye to eye on that. And I don't like that energy because it almost feels predatory around Tess. Sure, Tess is operating without regard for Jane, like she always has been, but it almost seems like Jane is waiting in the wings for something negative to befall her. And that's a wicked energy. That's a little different. I don't like that. They both have a touch of wickedness. Their mama must have been wicked because their dad is a sweetheart. So their mama must have been a little touch of racist and a little touch of wicked like they are. I'm curious about that. Jane is heartbroken that George proposed. But then to add a little lemon and salt to the injury and the open wound, her dad gives Tess their mother's wedding gown and his blessing in front of Jane. And Jane has always wanted to wear their mother's wedding gown. How heartbreaking. Now, I failed to mention Jane is the older sister as well. So there's clearly some kind of resentment that her younger sister is getting married and she's getting to essentially have the wedding of Jane's dreams. Now, nothing in me believes that this was accidental because everybody knows that Jane wanted to essentially replicate her parents' wedding and wear her mother's wedding gown. And I kind of feel like, Jane, you might need to talk to a therapist about that. There might be some Freudian issues here. Why do you want to replicate your parents' wedding? Like, I understand wanting to have elements of their wedding. Well, I don't understand. I think it's sweet, but I don't understand because I would never want anything similar to my parents' marriage, nuptials, wedding, nothing. But for those of you who had parents who had happy marriages, then I understand wanting to incorporate some elements of that and kind of bring it around to a full circle moment. I think that's beautiful. My grandfather officiated my wedding, so I do understand that family element. But replicating it and wearing the same dress, and I also, maybe I'm too literal, but I don't want to wear the same dress my mom wore when she married my dad. And I would just say, how about I make a replica, but I'm not wearing the same thing. It's kind of like taking your parents' bed. Just some things need to be far separated, and I don't need to be wearing the same dress my mom wore when she married my father, or the same tux my dad wore when he married my mom. We'll make a replica. So anyway, me and Jane don't see eye to eye on that either. I think she has some hangups that she needs to see a doctor about. So Jane is kind of at a standstill. She is heartbroken that the love of her life in her mind, she's clearly a little delulu. The love of her life is marrying her sister, someone who she sees as entitled and always getting the things that she wants in life. And now she's getting the man and the dream wedding of Tess. Now, I will say this: rejection is redirection, and it is a blessing. If life is pushing you towards James Marsden, why are you questioning it? Jane is crazy. That's all I'm going to say. Jane is just a little cuckoo. She reaches out to Kevin to blow off some steam. He has been asking her repeatedly to get a drink and she keeps declining. So now she accepts and they go out and she vents and he tells her, you need to learn to say no. Now it helps that she does not tell him who these people are. Like, she doesn't tell him that the man that her sister is marrying is in love with him. She just essentially tells him the predicament without going into detail. And so later when she goes along with Tess and George to pick out their wedding cake, Kevin shows up to write a story about Tess's wedding because she reached out to him. Now, this is the first time that Jane has realized that the man who writes the wedding segments in the style section of the paper, the things that she loves, she cuts them out and she keeps them. It's her favorite part of the paper, is the same guy she's been avoiding, rejecting, and annoyed by, Kevin, because his writing name is Malcolm Doyle. First of all, she loves this man's writing. So now Tess is getting her dream man, her dream wedding, her dream dress, and her dream writer. I'm surprised Jane didn't burn it all down. While I don't agree with her on most of that, I do understand her rage. I would snap. But this is why communication is important. Why not just tell your sister, like, I am struggling because you're having the same wedding as mom and dad, and you know that's what I would want. Is that something you truly want, or is it just the thing that you want to do because you've heard me talk about it? Like, I would want to talk that out so that I can make peace with it. But ultimately, she's allowed to have whatever wedding she wants, girl. And she's getting married first. So just suck it up. It's not that deep. Now, these are the moments where I say it's just a wedding, girl. It's just not that deep. So then Malcolm visits Jane at home to get more info to write this story about Tess and George's wedding. And then clearly he knows the truth, since Jane vented to him earlier that Jane is actually not that happy about the nuptials. And it's clear and it's bleeding through in everything she says. No matter what she says, she's saying it in a very hostile manner. So as he's walking around her apartment, he accidentally spots her closet that's filled with bridesmaids' dresses. And after some teasing her about how ugly the dresses were, she agrees to try on some that weren't so ugly to prove his theory wrong, which results in her doing the ever famous rom-com montage of outfit changes. And I love this. This actually happens to be my husband's favorite part of movies. Whenever they do an outfit montage, he loves it. It's his favorite part. He loves it in sitcoms and movies and everything. So that's like his thing. And they did not disappoint. This is probably one of the best ones I've ever seen. It's so cute. And to me, it just looked like they were falling in love when they were doing this. Now, I also have to say, Malcolm has a problem with boundaries, because you went through her agenda book and you found her. And now you went through her closet. Like, he's going through some very personal things. Now, they have a lot of fun. He's taking pics of her. They're trying on gowns. He's even got some of the accessories on. They're having fun. And I'm gonna tell you the truth. If James Marsden was sitting in my living room, I would have taken off that bridesmaid dress and put on a wedding dress and been like, we got somewhere to go. And we would have headed to the chapel right then. Bring your book, bring your camera. I don't care. Let's go. We getting married. I don't care what you say. God, club him over the top of the head and drag him by the foot. We getting married. Should have brought your ass up in here. But anyway, yeah. These recaps are not bringing out the best in me. Later, Jane finds out that Tess has turned Pedro into an indentured servant. She now is paying him to clean George's apartment, but making him keep secrets from George, which is already messed up. You should not be keeping secrets with children. So not only is Tess racist, she's a predator. Great. Fun. Jesus, she is the worst. She is the worst. She is racist and classist and nasty. And I hate her. I hate her character. Not Malin Ackerman. Tess. So as Jane and George are at a tasting, like this tasting for their reception, Kevin walks up, or Malcolm walks up, and he happens to observe how Jane is talking and looking at George. And that's when he realizes the people that she was upset with is actually George and Tess. Now, he knew that there was some kind of discord, but he did not know that Jane was in love with George. And he picks up on it immediately. He sees it right out. He then asks Jane for a ride back, and he confronts her about what her real problem is with her sister marrying George. He knows that she's in love with him. So they get into this full-fledged argument. They are arguing as they're driving in the rain. Who could have told them this was a bad idea? I am a person who believes in the 10 and the 2, or the 9 and the 3. And when it's raining, this is me. I am, you're not getting, I won't even look to the left or the right. I'm going to be focused. Okay. That's what I've been doing. I be focused. So Jane did not do that. And they end up in a ditch. So they have to wait until it stops raining, and they have to get somewhere where they can call AAA. So they walk down to a local bar and they start to drink, and they drink a lot, and they start talking and letting loose, and they get drunk and they end up on the bar stool partying and having fun. And they sing Bennie and the Jets, which I love this scene so much. This is one of my favorite scenes. It's actually in my trailer for the channel. I love this scene. It's so cool. So they do all this, they get drunk, they have fun, and then they make their way back to the car and they smash. Just pounding cakes in the front seat of the car in the ditch while it's raining, having fun. The next morning, as they're eating at a diner, they're waiting for the tow truck, and a waitress recognizes Jane as the lady from the paper. Malcolm, aka Kevin's story about Jane being always the bridesmaid, never the bride, and 27 dresses. The article was published before he got a chance to read the final edit, and obviously before he had sex with Jane and kind of fell for her. So this caught him off guard as well, and he has a really hard time explaining, and she is heartbroken. She is hurt. She leaves. She gets out of there. She's humiliated. She slaps him. But she didn't give him a chance to explain. And honestly, after reading that, or just even seeing the headline, I probably wouldn't have given him a chance to explain either, because whatever you had to say, you totally could have just said that to me. You didn't have to write that shit out. And it doesn't help that he had been pursuing her for a long time. So if he hadn't been pursuing her up until this point, if he had essentially been like, you're just a product of the wedding industry, I don't really care about it, blah, 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 and then they ended up falling in love, I might have a little more grace. But he had been interested in her from the very beginning. So for him to be pursuing her and then making fun of her, I fully understand why she hated his ass. Kevin goes and confronts his boss about the promise that they had to hold the story, and then also for him to do the final edit or to review it. And she doesn't care because the story is a huge hit, and she's like, deal with it. It's a good story. You did a good job. Tess is not only taking out her anger on Jane and making the entire article about herself, but she changed their mother's wedding dress as well. She gave it a full makeover. Jane finally has had enough, like seeing that she chopped up the wedding dress and that she's taking out the article that was written about her that humiliated her. She's taking that out on her like she's not the victim. Tess is self-centered. She's a self-centered racist asshole. They really made her hateable. Like, she's so easy to hate. So at that point, Jane has finally had it. She tells Tess the truth and rips into her about ruining their mother's wedding dress. She tells Tess that she needs to come clean to George and stop faking her whole personality and to stop doing what she's doing to Pedro. And she tells Tess, if you don't, I will tell him. So she gave Tess an opportunity to tell. When Tess does not come clean, Jane finally decides to do it herself. So at their rehearsal dinner, she puts together a slideshow exposing every single lie that Tess has ever told George in front of everyone they know. Mind you, Tess had written out what she wanted Jane to say. Jane did not deviate from the words, but she put the contradicting photos on the screen behind her. Goodness. By the way, the speech that Tess actually wrote for Jane to read was also awful. It was terrible. Even if Jane had done exactly what Tess wanted, that would have been so shallow and gross and disgusting. Tess is an awful person. She's a terrible person. So then Kevin shows up to the rehearsal dinner to apologize to Jane again. And he wants to let her know that he was actually proud of her for finally standing up for herself with Tess. He tells her how he feels about her and that he thinks she deserves more than what she settles for. He also gave her a Palm Pilot to replace her agenda book because he'd been teasing her about working with such an outdated piece of equipment, this agenda book in the early 2000s. So he wanted her to get more digital, and he gave her that. And it was like a sentimental thing. She's still kind of stuck, but she's really hurt. She clearly doesn't trust him anymore. And you can tell that she was catching feelings for him. And so from Jane's perspective, though, I low-key understand her. The man that she's in love with is marrying her sister, someone who has consistently taken advantage of her, but she's allowed it. The man she's in love with is marrying her sister. The man she was catching feelings for made fun of her for the world to see. And then her sister has been treating her like shit, and she just ruined that relationship in front of everybody. She's heartbroken on 3 different levels, and I fully understand why she was taking it as hard as she was. Like, I get it. Later, Jane and Tess have a full-on argument where they let off all of their steam. Tess confesses that she got fired from her job in New York, and the guy that she was dating before George had actually dumped her, which explains why she conformed so quickly to be what George wanted. She was needing some sort of validation. She was in the pits. She'd been rejected twice in 2 major ways, lost her job and her relationship. She gave Tess the benefit of the doubt of everything and assumed her life was perfect. That's what a lot of insecure people do. They always assume other people have it better than them, and they essentially project their insecurities onto that person. Like, oh, they get everything they want. How unfair. And they're kind of like always in the doldrums. I don't really trust people like that. But anyway, it's a really hard spiral to get caught in, and it's really hard to get out of that. That's why I just recommend, if you ever feel yourself feeling a little jealous, to confront that within yourself, not against the trigger, against yourself. Like, what's wrong? Why do I not feel adequate in this area? This is something that I should work on, and it's in my complete control to build up that part of myself. Tess probably could have used a lot of support from her sister, but she can't blame anybody but herself because she came up lying. If she had come to Jane and been like, girl, let me tell you what happened, and she'd been real with her, Jane could have been there for her. But also, Jane made a lot of assumptions and then acted on those assumptions. Both of them are trash. That was easy. So they make up and they let it all out, and they get back close. And Jane finally decides to stop prioritizing everyone else and to put herself first. And she actually gets rid of all 27 dresses and starts over. So then Jane also decides to quit her job. And she realizes that George has been essentially taking care of her people-pleasing qualities. So when she quits her job, George actually then walks over to her and gives her a kiss because he's clearly feeling the energy between them. And it's when she realizes we don't have a spark. I'm gonna be real. While I understand why the movie did this, this is gross. I would never want to kiss someone that my sister kissed. I would never want to kiss someone that was going to marry my sister. Gross. Anyway. Ugh. So she rushes to find Kevin. He's at a wedding and she hops in a cab, the same cab that she was taking back and forth from those first two weddings at the beginning of the movie. It's the same cab. She finds him at the wedding. It's on a cruise, and she gets on the microphone at the reception and she tells him she's in love with him. Now, everybody has seen this article in the style section because it's a wedding, and they're all excited to see her, and it's Malcolm Doyle who wrote the story. So they're all falling in love with love. So then we get a 1-year time jump. Jane and Kevin get married on the beach. This is a very beautiful wedding, but I hated how they had her hair. I hated it so much. Like, why y'all didn't do a nice style for her? Tess and George make up. Tess is there helping Jane for a change, and she's the maid of honor. And when George walks up, she introduces herself and she tells him all the dirty truths about herself. Like, she eats meat and she got job, and she got fired from her job, and essentially all these things that she had lied about, she keeps it real. And he likes her anyway, because of course he does. And they make up. And then this was my favorite part of the movie. All of the brides that she was a bridesmaid for, they all wore the bridesmaid dress that she had to wear in their wedding to her wedding. It was the coolest thing. All 27 of them. I loved this part of the movie. Whoever had this idea, kudos to you. I loved as the camera zoomed out, it showed all the dresses. I thought that was so cool. I love that part of the movie. Overall, 27 Dresses is a very fun rom-com. It has all the elements of just a classic freaking rom-com. You've got the leading guy, and you've got Katherine Heigl, who I love as a rom-com leading lady. I really wish she had honed in on that lane a lot more. I loved her in Knocked Up too. She was so good. Katherine Heigl is a great actress, and she's very funny, and I would have loved to see her in more rom-coms, and there's still time. I would still love to see her in more rom-coms. She was also in Life as We Know It with Josh Duhamel, and I loved that movie too. Basically, I enjoy her in her rom-coms, and her opposite James Marsden, it was great chemistry. They played off each other well, and it helps that they're both very funny people. They're both very witty naturally. So I really enjoyed that. The idea of being in 27 weddings sounds like hell. I had my own wedding, and I said I would never do it again. If my husband wanted to renew our vows, we would do something simple, just me and him. If God forbid I ever had to remarry, I would not do so with a wedding. Weddings were fun and beautiful, but one, my grandfather is no longer alive, so I would only have a wedding if he could have officiated, and he did, and this is the only one I'll ever have. But then two, the planning process was made so much harder with bridesmaids. It just was. It was just because you have so many people to consider, and so many different personalities, and so many opinions, and so many preferences, and people treat weddings like family reunions. So like a lot of times your guest list gets bloated, and a lot of times it's you learn a lot about yourself in that process, and then you're also preparing for marriage, which is its own task and the primary task. So it can be a very daunting time. We did so in 10 months. We got engaged in February and then married in November, and I would have definitely tacked on another year to that planning process if I had been thinking straight, if I truly knew what I was in for. I am not a wedding person. I'm happy to attend anybody's anything that they want me to be there for, to celebrate them in their special moments, but weddings are just not it for me. I will go and enjoy myself and be the perfect wedding guest, but it's not my favorite thing to do. So the idea of being in 27 weddings sounds awful. What I want to know is, why didn't Jane just become a wedding planner? If you're already going to be doing this stuff clearly for free and spending all the money that you're spending, why not just be a wedding planner and get some money out of it? Anyway, then she wouldn't have to balance it the way she is. She would be able to plan it. So anyway, those are my thoughts on 27 Dresses. This is, again, one of my favorite rom-coms. I would give this rom-com 3 out of 5 stars for sure. It's a really good rom-com, but I think some of the storylines were a little bit ugh. Like Jane wanting to have the same wedding as her parents and also wear her mother's wedding dress. While I understand the sentiment, but they did something similar in Bride Wars as well, where it was like, you don't have to wear your mom's dress. I know that it's a thing that people do, but it's just get your own or make a replica. I don't know. Anyway, those are my thoughts. If you have not already, please leave your comments in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on 27 Dresses? How many stars would you give it out of 5? And where does it rank on your favorite movies or rom-coms of all time? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you have a recommendation or a suggestion for a movie you want me to recap, let me know in the comments. That's all I have. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, share, and comment, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.